we have an opportunity now, all of us as parents, that we don't normally have, because society expects us to overschedule our kids. We need to send our kids to school. We're expected to add extracurriculars to that. If not, it's play dates. We're following the societal norms of overscheduling our kids. And now, because of the situation, suddenly all of that structure has been removed. And that can feel like a very scary thing for parents and even for kids maybe who are so used to the structure. But in reality, it's an opportunity that we would never otherwise get, and it's an opportunity to focus on developmental needs that our kids actually have that are not being met. Because kids really do have a developmental need for actually a lot of unstructured time, and that's what kids used to have before all the overscheduling. So kids really need to learn how to fill their empty time, whether it's empty time that they're filling on their own or with their siblings or together with their parents, but they need to learn, okay, skip that part about the empty time, please. Okay, so what we actually have now is an opportunity for kids to be focusing on, no, skip that. What we have, okay, we'll start again with that again. What we're being given now as parents is an opportunity to use this time of no structure, no school, no extracurriculars, no play dates, to use that time to allow our kids the freedom to be kids. And the advantage of allowing our kids the freedom to be kids is that kids are naturally, developmentally wired to fill their time partaking in activities that are most suited to move development forward. So let me just give the most simple explanation or example for that. Would be a baby, right? We don't make schedules for babies. From 8 to 9, you're going to practice rolling, and from 10 to 11. But, we do need to put them on the floor and give them a chance. But once we do that, the baby on their own, let's take a 12-month-old is going to be trying, if it's a typical child with a typically developing child, is going to be trying to learn how to walk, because that is, I'm going to start this whole thing over again, but I like the way I did it, but I need to change it a little bit. Okay. So what we're being given now as parents is an opportunity to take this time of no structure, no school, no extracurriculars, no play dates, and use that time to allow our kids to just be kids and be themselves, do what comes naturally to them. And the advantage of doing that, and the amazing opportunity, is that kids actually need a lot of unstructured time in order to meet their developmental needs, because what kids by instinct do with their unstructured time is they partake in activities that move development forward. So for example, for a baby, it might be getting up and trying to learn how to walk over and over again, not with anybody telling them to do that, just naturally speaking. And as kids get older, it continues that the children will be partaking in activities that move their development forwards. And it may be activities with an adult not understanding, the parent not understanding, oh, my child is doing this because it's a developmental need. But from the parent's perspective, it might be hard to understand why the child's doing it. But that's always why the child is doing it. So for example, a 9-month-old knocking the food off of his tray is meeting a developmental need to experiment with cause and effect and experiment with gravity, as an example. or a toddler jumping into a mud puddle is meeting a developmental need for sensory exploration that is really important to their development. Or a preschooler, I have to stop there because I need my examples. Okay, stop there for a minute, even though I know it's not ideal because I'm in the middle of saying something. Okay. Yeah. Another example of this is, a preschool boy who takes his Legos and builds a gun with his Legos. He's doing that not because he's on the way to becoming a mass murderer. He's doing that because he's fulfilling a developmental need to act out his fears and his feelings through pretend play, and explore the aggressive side of his nature, which we all have as human beings. So these are all true developmental needs that kids have, but parents watching these things happen may not understand it. And when we have this time of no structure, and we're going to give our kids a much larger window of time to meet their developmental needs and to move their development forward and to get away from the learned helplessness that we have inadvertently created in them by structuring all their time, to get away from that and to feel that sense of competence that I can do interesting things. I know what I want to do, and I can choose to do it, and I can enjoy myself, and I can feel my development moving forward. Kids can feel when they're making progress developmentally, and it gives them a feeling of competence, true self-esteem. Self-esteem does not come from adults praising the kids. Wow, you did a good job. We get an A on your test. Good job listening to the teacher. Good job doing your homework, or any other type of praise. That's not where self-esteem comes from. That type of praise actually makes kids feel less internally confident because they have to look to us for praise. They start developing the idea that to find out if they're doing a good job or not doing a good job, they need to look to the adults in their lives and see if they're being praised or not. That is the opposite of a child with real and true self-esteem. So to develop true self-esteem, you want to have a child who feels capable and competent and confident to chart their own path, their own developmental path. And kids are amazingly able to do this. We don't really have to help them. They know what they need to be doing developmentally, and a lot of what they need to be doing developmentally is play. What we as adults think of as, free time, kind of like they're wasting their time or they're not doing something really educational during that time. Actually, during the time that children are playing, there's so much learning that's happening, learning that's much more powerful and much more central to their development than anything that could happen in school. So I'll stop over there for a minute. Okay. Let me just look at some of the things that I wanted to say about play. Where did I write it down? Oh, I wrote it down here. Okay. So when kids are engaging in play, obviously they're If it's pretend play, they're using their imagination, their creativity. They're very often making up a story. There's a mommy, there's a daddy, they're going to the store. These are the building blocks for later on when children are going to be asked to write a story with a beginning, middle, and end, or come up with your own idea for a project. So this is where children learn their creativity, and that's the reason that children are so drawn to it, because they need to be doing that work in order to grow their ability to be creative, which is so crucial to grow during childhood. Besides their creativity, when children are playing, they are working on their emotional regulation and their awareness of their emotions. Because when children play, their play is filled with emotional themes. If you watch them playing, you're going to see bad guys and good guys. You're going to see nurturing. You're going to see aggression. You're going to see vulnerability. You're going to see a lot of emotional themes in their play. Anger, jealousy, sadness. It's going to be emotionally very rich. And the reason for that is that children use play to explore and to master the emotions that are coursing through them in their real life, in the part of their life when they're not playing. And they need that time to process all their emotions, to process, I was feeling, when mommy was holding my baby sister, I was feeling a really aggressive feeling. I felt like I wanted to choke my baby sister. And I was feeling really jealous, and I'm not sure what that feeling is. So I need to explore and understand that feeling. But children are not going to sit and tell you all of that. They're not going to be able to have an appointment with a therapist to discuss those feelings, get to the bottom of it, and try to figure it out. They need play to figure it out. So play is their time. And then that child, if that's the emotional thing that they're working through, they're going to play with the dolls. And then maybe something aggressive is going to happen with the doll. Maybe they're going to have something bad happen to the doll. And then they're going to experiment with, how does it feel during play? Like in real life, I wanted to choke my baby sister. I didn't do it. I saved it for playtime. Now let me see how it feels during playtime if I take the baby and throw her to the ground and she cracks her head. And now I feel, that felt good. Now I feel a little bad about it. So maybe now the baby gets to go to the doctor, because in pretend play, the wonderful thing is you can vent, you can act out your aggression, and then you can make up for it. So now it's all magical, right? So now the baby can go to the doctor and feel all better, and now I can bring out my nurturing side in play. And I also love my baby. I have both of those feelings, and they're conflicting and it's confusing. But now I can take care of the baby, I can feed the baby. So the child is able to act out her full range of emotions that she has towards her baby. And this is just her baby sister. This is just as an example, through play. But what happens to a child who doesn't get that opportunity? A child who doesn't get that opportunity is more likely in real life to be aggressive, or is more likely to be emotionally just withdrawn, out of touch, not aware of their feelings, maybe kind of like whiny or crabby. It's a child who's not doing the emotional work that children are meant to do. The problem that we're faced with in our culture is that children get so little time for this, not as much time as they need. They need a lot of time for it. And that's why, you give them a minute and they're back to it. So children need so much time for it, and now we have the opportunity. We have the opportunity to give them this time. And it doesn't, the amazing thing about play is that it works on so many things all at the same time. So the child's working on their creativity. They're working on their executive function as they plan what's going to happen and where it's going to happen and how it's going to happen. They're working on their emotional regulation, as I mentioned before. They're working on their logical thinking because they need to plan, if this happens, then what would happen next? So they're just working on so many skills at the same time that are going to move their development forward in a much more powerful way than any fact or information that they can learn in school. And schools are very information based. So children are learning ABCs, shapes, colors, or you get older, math facts, history facts, just a lot of facts, and facts are good and interesting, but they're not what moves development forward. What moves development forward is a change in how the brain is thinking and working. So when you learn to process your emotions, that's moving your development forward. You become more of an emotionally aware thinker. Or when you are improving your executive function skills as you plan out your play themes, that's really moving development forward. And all of this doesn't only happen through pretend play. And as kids get older, it may be a little bit less pretend play, more and more so other types of play. But kids who are given enough time, boys given enough time, might plan a very complex sports game with the balls and how you throw the ball, and have all sorts of rules. If you do this with the ball, this will happen. If you do that with the ball, something else will happen. And given enough time, they can be really creative. But what we do instead is we structure them. Now you're going to play soccer. Everybody for the next 45 minutes is only going to be trying to kick this ball into a goal. That's it. There are no other rules. There's nothing else to do. You just need to follow along with what the coach is telling you. And so all of that is removed now. So now it's a kid and a ball and his siblings, and let's see what happens. And this is their chance to do what kids have always been doing, which is to figure it out, to figure out what's supposed to happen next. I'm going to stop here. Now, our kids have been overly structured for such a long time and for so much of their day. And when they're not being structured, they've been exposed to so many devices and screens that are also encouraging them to have that learned helplessness and think that they cannot think for themselves, they cannot stimulate themselves, that it may take some time before they're really ready to regain that confidence that they know what to do with their time. I mean, some kids can just jump right into it, but for other kids it will take longer, especially kids who've been on a lot of screens and devices. And you'll hear a lot of bored and I don't know what to do next. And what to do if that happens? Well, there are a lot of ideas circulating over social media of things that kids could do, and activities to spark their interest, and those are great to pull out as needed. What I would suggest to parents is don't make a schedule for your child's day from 9 to 4 to replace school and fill it up with all these different activities and feel that you have to be their fun maker. Ideally, kids are going to be filling up as much of their time as possible with their own ideas, because if it's their ideas, then it's moving their development forward in a much more powerful way than if it's your idea. It's okay if it's your idea or an idea you pulled off social media, but it's much better if it's their idea. That's their executive function. That's their creativity. Or it's their emotional themes that they're trying to work on. So always prioritize their initiative wherever possible, but be there, be available with other ideas that will get them thinking, oh, these are the types of things I could be doing with my free time. But once you see them take off, take a step back. The game doesn't have to go exactly as it was described, on your chat group. It doesn't have to follow the rules that you had in mind. It can go wherever it goes. Just go with the flow. And if one idea sparks another, don't have in mind, after this game, we're going to play the next game. Use it when you need to. But let go of that need for structure and order that we have as adults that kids have much less of. Kids need some predictability and routine in their day, but they don't need the amount of structure and order that we as adults need. We as adults need a lot of structure and order because we have a lot of responsibilities. We are not being guided by our development. And our development is mostly complete. So when we have free time, we need to think and plan, like, what are we going to do from 9 to 10, from 10 to 11? How are we filling our day? And if we don't do that, we just end up vegging on our phones. We really don't know what to do. But for kids, it's really the opposite. Kids bring disorder and chaos into the world. That's their contribution because they are moving their development forward, and development is messy. It's not linear, it's not planned, it doesn't go in any particular order. It's one thing one day, 1 minute, another thing the next minute, and they need to follow that uneven path. It could be really important to be playing with dolls 1 minute, and then when they catch sight of the puddles, it could be more important to be jumping into those puddles, and their development is guiding them, and we have to let their development guide them. I'll take a break here. So we may have to, for kids who've been overly structured, we may have to give them more time, and we may have to be okay with hearing on board, as much as it's hard to hear as a parent, but to accept their feelings of boredom. Those feelings are real. We, as adults, created that learned helplessness in them. Don't be angry at them for it. Don't be frustrated. I know it's frustrating, but try not to be. Instead, be there with them and support them and accept their feelings and say, yes, it is hard to know what to do. That is a hard feeling. And you can offer them some of those ideas that you see on social. You can say, would you like me to offer you an idea? I have some ideas of how we could spend our time. And also give them a little space. Watch and see if they come up with something on their own, which would be even more ideal.